These people are acting hysterically because they are Hoosiers, watching their near religion that is the game of basketball. It's long been called Hoosier hysteria because any basketball game can make a gym full of people in Indiana go wild. I know because I grew up in Indiana. And this isn't just any game, it's the opening round of the 1980 Boys High School Final Four. The winner goes on to play for the state championship that night. The Indiana Final Four is the command performance of high school sports nationwide. On this day, Broad Ripple High School in Indianapolis, wearing the white uniforms, and Marion High School from Marion, Indiana, in the gold, are competing for the right to go on to the state title game. Marion ties the score with just 1 second left, but the Hoosier hysteria isn't nearly done. If Broad Ripple doesn't score, the game will go into overtime, so they have nothing to lose here. And they will inbound the ball to senior Stacy Torin. Stacy would go on to be a football star at Notre Dame, another legendary sports institution in Indiana, and he played in the NFL as well. But on this afternoon in 1980, the 18-year-old Stacy Torin still has one unforgettable Indiana basketball memory to create, one which will shortly show just how hysterical Hoosiers can become.
They're going to try to get the ball if they can to Tracy. Now they come instead to Turan. It's on the way. Look out!
Basketball thrills I have ever seen. Just sit back, take a deep breath, and describe that shot for me, will you?
All I can say, it was just a shot. I heard my coach say, shoot it, and I shot it. It was something I had to do.
Even when they don't end with the sort of uncanny drama we saw on that day in 1980, Indiana basketball games are always about youth, energy, and seemingly unlimited futures. Stacy Torrens was classic. He made honorable mention All-American at Notre Dame and went on to become a standout with the NFL's Los Angeles Raiders, and he was planning to get married. But then at age 27, in 1989, Stacy Torin died in a car crash in Southern California after a preseason team promotional event. His blood alcohol level was over the limit. Stacy's tragic end typified an odd and troubling pattern of so many of the best Indiana boys basketball stars in the 1970s and early 80s, including those who starred at that festival of young life, the Final Four, dying young. When you're a Hoosier, you forget all your cares by walking into a gym for a basketball game. In high schools of all sizes, from Indiana's inner cities to its rural hamlets, the talents of players and the passion of fans erase from the mind such matters as the inclement weather, Monday's math test, past due bills, crime, and politics, and certainly life's tragedies. That's the last thing you think of at a basketball game. And yet, when I have done online searches to find what became of some of those athletes I fondly recall watching on television or in person at the Final Four and elsewhere during the 1970s and hence, I have often been stunned to see tear emoticons and RIP in comment threads. The surprisingly large number of deaths of Final Four stars mostly resulted from unforeseeable accidents, being in the wrong car or airplane at the wrong time. Other times it has been illnesses that shortened their lives. Neither was strictly so for Stacy Torin, a likable, low-key Los Angeles Raiders defensive back whose leadership on the 1980 Broad Ripple State champion basketball team, followed by his Notre Dame football and NFL success, made him one of Indiana's most accomplished athletes. Just as he bowed out from the basketball world with a 1980 state title made possible by that 57-foot basket, Stacy Torin began his pro football career with equally memorable fireworks. In his very first NFL regular season game, he returned an interception 76 yards for a Raider touchdown. He spent several more years as one of the league's top pass defenders, tacklers, and sackers of quarterbacks. Stacy Torin was living every sports fan's dream. But after he attended a team open house at a high school in Oxnard, California in August 1989, his car hit a curb near his home in Marina del Rey. He was alone in the vehicle, which flipped over several times and hit a tree. Stacy died as he was thrown from the car and his head struck the pavement. No one else was injured in the accident. Police said Stacy was well over the legal alcohol limit when his car crashed, but there were no skid marks or other indications of speeding. One witness said the car appeared to be going about 40 miles per hour. The speed limit was 35. Teammates told reporters Stacy had been pleasant and positive during the open house and the team practice that preceded it. Broad Ripple High School formed the Stacy Torin Foundation to raise money for college scholarships for financially struggling Indianapolis public school students. The foundation also runs youth mentoring and leadership training programs.
Number 14, Jack Moore.
And here was the key to this ball club. Jackie Moore, 5'9" senior.
Jack Moore was a small, agile court tactician whose outside skills surprised opponents and fans at the 1978 Final Four as he led Muncie Central to a state championship.
Bridges. Here's Jack Moore. He got his man in the air, goes around and banks it home.
He was great inside, too.
When the little guy gets that ball, you can't keep from fouling him. That's all. He's going to make you foul him. He is just about as good as anyone I've seen at doing that.
Here he is, Jack Moore, 5'9" senior with a 21-1 scoring average. Leads the team in assists and steals.
Jack Moore scored 34 points in the first round game and 27 in a thrilling overtime title win over Terre Haute South Vigo High School. His strong but small frame was ideal for athletics in general, but he may well have seemed simply too small to be a standout in Division I basketball. But fans of the University of Nebraska were the next to be made believers in Jack's energetic style of play. Jack enrolled at the football-obsessed Lincoln, Nebraska campus, quickly becoming a crowd favorite using the same finesse and daring that wowed Final Four fans in Indiana. He won the 1982 Pomeroy Naismith Award for the nation's best senior player under 6 feet tall, and he won admirers throughout his 4 years as a Cornhusker for his positive personality and his straight-A academic record. Jack adopted Nebraska as his new home state, and after graduating, he was in the early years of a business career there, but it all came to a tragic end for Jack Moore on the back portion of a Nebraska ranch on a stormy night. He and his business partner, stockbroker Gary Johnson of North Platte, died when their private plane crashed on March 3, 1984. Johnson was piloting the plane on a return business trip from Indiana, where the two had also watched Jack Moore's former high school team play. They landed to refuel in Des Moines, Iowa, then ran into unexpected storms and fog over Nebraska before crashing. 25 years after their deaths, the University of Nebraska campus saluted their popular hoops and easygoing role model with Jack Moore Day, coinciding with a Cornhusker basketball home game. Halftime featured appearances by Jack Moore's mother and his sisters, one of whom, Jane Ann Giles, said she still kept a small piece of the plane in which her brother had died as a memento. She said it gave her consolation. Jerry Shoecraft was a childhood friend and teammate of Jack Moore's on the 78 state title team.
Jerry Shoecraft.
Shoecraft, a leaper, 6'5", a senior.
He said it was Jack Moore who persuaded him to enroll at Nebraska and play for the Cornhuskers. Shoecraft, who would go on to serve 2 terms on the Lincoln City Council and have a business career in the community, said Jack Moore has inspired him in everything he has accomplished. Jerry said on a Cornhusker website that whenever he's feeling low or facing adversity, he asks himself the same question: what would Jack do?
Winburn from outside, good. And Jeffersonville goes in front.
Tony Winburn of Jeffersonville High School was, like Jack Moore, a small player who won fans with an energetic, overachieving style of play. His official height was 5'8", but fans and opponents often estimated Winburn to be about 5'5", while never underestimating his talent. Winburn helped Jeffersonville reach the Final Four in 1972 and helped the Red Devils to a 58-11 record during his 3-year varsity career. Also, like the Muncie Star, Winburn died in a plane crash in his 20s, one that killed 29 people in one of the most profound tragedies in Indiana's history. Marion Anthony Tony Winburn, along with the entire University of Evansville basketball team, died December 13, 1977, when their propeller charter plane crashed just after takeoff on a cold, rainy, misty night for a planned trip to Tennessee for a game. The crash also killed head coach Bobby Watson and acclaimed Evansville sportscaster Marv Bates. The Evansville Courier, noting the pain inflicted on the entire city of Evansville by the shocking loss of its youthful and beloved sports team, called December 13 the night it rained tears, a description still often used to denote the crash. The feeling of a personal loss was shared in the hometowns of each of the tragically killed passengers. They were from several U.S. states, and 2 airplane crew members had been born in Cuba and Vietnam. Several young men who had stood out at the Indiana Final Four were among those whose lives were cut short that night in Evansville. Tony Winburn was a star on the 1972 Jeffersonville Final Four team, which lost in double overtime to that night's state title winner. In 1973, his Jeff squad had been ranked #1 during the season, but was stunned in the state tourney's first round by arch rival New Albany, a team which had struggled mid-season, but went on from that upset over Jeffersonville to win one of the most surprising state championships ever, stealing the title glory Jeff fans believed would be theirs, further intensifying the already passionate rivalry between the 2 schools in the Fall Cities region across from Louisville. An important reserve on that 1973 New Albany State champion team was 6'9" forward Steve Miller. He went from rival to teammate of Tony Winburn when he chose to go to the University of Evansville after graduating from New Albany High School in 1975. And he was on the ill-fated plane. Miller was married 4 months before he died. His widow, Vicki Pay, who has since remarried, said in a 2007 story in the News and Tribune newspaper in New Albany that the people of that area could not have been better, adding that their kindness after the tragedy enabled her to become skilled at helping people after painful losses. Pay said, "You can take something like this and become a bitter person, or you can use it for good and help others." Tony Winburn's mother, Edna Winburn, recalled in that 2007 story her city of Jeffersonville being filled with half-mast flags after the crash. It was receiving constant expressions of condolences from neighbors. She said people in the Jeffersonville area were very hurt and concerned about Tony. And she said in that 2007 story that people still were bringing it up to her. She said her son, who would have earned a business degree from the University of Evansville in the spring of 1978, enjoyed his classes and playing basketball. She described him as a very congenial guy who never gave her any trouble. She said, "I'll never get over wishing he was still here." The National Transportation Safety Board investigation found two contributing causes of the crash. The pilots, whose duties also included loading luggage in the cargo hold, packed it unevenly, and they skipped the optional procedure of removing safety locks from the plane's exterior. Bad weather had delayed the plane's flight to Evansville from Indianapolis, the base of the aviation company contracted to fly the team. Before receiving word that the plane's arrival was imminent, Evansville athletic officials were considering opting for a bus trip to the destination Murfreesboro, Tennessee, for the game, which was to be played the following night against Middle Tennessee State University. Terre Haute South Vigo High School's Mike Joyner, who was a senior on South's 1977 Final Four team, died in the crash that December after playing 4 games in his freshman season at Evansville. The Purple Aces' last game, 3 days before their deaths, was at Indiana State University in Mike's hometown, giving him some family time, including seeing his newborn sister Peggy for the second and final time. Mike also gave his mother, Martha Joyner, his Christmas gift wish, which included sweaters and an electric blanket. Indiana State University coach Bill Hodges had pulled off the recruiting coup of all basketball history when in 1975 he gently but persistently persuaded Larry Bird to give Division I college basketball another try after Bird dropped out of Indiana University without ever donning an IU uniform. The once obscure Larry Bird took ISU's Sycamores to the national title game in the spring of 1979, creating sky-high expectations which Hodges could not fulfill during a losing 79-80 season as Larry Bird was lighting up the NBA. But there was hope for an upswing at Indiana State from just across town. Terre Haute South Vigo High School's 6'8" Kevin Thompson signed with hometown ISU in 1980, a year after the incomparable Larry Bird graduated.
Thompson is reporting back into the lineup. 6'7" sophomore, 4.5 scoring average.
Compared to Hodges' long-shot, intricate effort to sign Larry Bird, recruiting Thompson was virtually a stroll through the neighborhood. Hodges became a friend of the Indiana High School All-Star, who had averaged 21 points per game in his senior year. Sports writer Seth Davis described Thompson as, quote, a big, strapping 6'8" forward whose square chin, finely combed black hair, and glasses made him look like Clark Kent. Though he may have evoked the Man of Steel, Thompson took an injury to a rib, playing pickup basketball during the summer of '80. And when it had not healed by the start of his freshman fall semester, a deeper problem was indicated. After some tests, a doctor diagnosed Thompson with cancer, turning his planned battle for a starting spot with Indiana State into a battle for his life. Circa 1981, former Indiana State players, including Bird, played an exhibition game in Terre Haute against former Indiana Pacers as a benefit for Kevin Thompson, as shown in this footage from TV station WTHI. Despite the help and the sentiment, Thompson died in January 1982, never having played a game at Indiana State. He left a wife, Tammy, and his parents listed in the obituary as Mr. and Mrs. Bill Thompson of Terre Haute. Hodges said Thompson was a courageous young man who fought a good fight. The day after Thompson's death, Hodges resigned the coach position at ISU. He had gone through a difficult post-Larry Bird losing season in 79-80, a divorce, then the death of a promising forward, but more so a young person Hodges had befriended during recruitment efforts from just across town. I grew to know him so well, Hodges said, and it tore me apart. You just can't be more atop the high school basketball world than sharing most valuable player honors with Magic Johnson in an international tournament, and for that matter, heading to Indiana University to play the college game. Tommy Baker, a 1977 graduate of Jeffersonville High School, led his school's team to the #1 ranking in Indiana and played on Final Four teams as a freshman and a junior, losing to the eventual state champion by 3 points in one of those games and 2 points in the other. In this brief excerpt from the 1974 Final Four, the announcer uses foretelling words describing the situation freshman guard Tommy Baker found himself in.
Jeffersonville up by 9. Baker with the ball. In trouble. Bounces it, however, to Call.
When Tommy Baker got in trouble later at various stages of life, the system was not on his side, and the Indiana High School All-Star from 1977 slid down a slope through controversies, incarceration, and destitution, dying of pneumonia at 51. In 1978, early in his sophomore college season at storied Indiana University, Baker was one of 3 players dismissed from the team by the iron-willed coach Bobby Knight, reportedly over marijuana possession. That unglorious exit ended great hopes for IU stardom that began when, as a Louisville newspaper sports columnist recalled, the high school senior Baker opened the curtains at his family's home in Claysburg, a historically black section of Jeffersonville, and gushed over seeing the legendary Coach Knight getting out of his car on a recruiting visit. There was much else that indicated Tommy Baker was a good match for Knight's program. The 3-year starting guard at Jeffersonville was skilled at the motion offense, passing, and pressure defense, the 3 legs of Knight's system, which brought about an undefeated NCAA title in 1976. That was the same season that high school junior Tommy Baker led a talented Jeffersonville Red Devil team that lost in the afternoon semis of the Final Four by 2 points to that night's state champion, Marion. That was one of 3 of Baker's 4 seasons at Jeffersonville, which ended with painfully close losses when the school had state titles within their reach. After his exile from IU in late 1978, Baker had a successful 2 years playing at Eastern Kentucky University. But he was cut in rookie camp after the NBA's San Antonio Spurs drafted him. A young man who had become a friend of Magic Johnson after the two led a team of U.S. high school seniors playing against German high schools at U.S. military bases, now would never take the court in the NBA his one-time peer Magic was dominating. Back in Jeffersonville, Tommy Baker was arrested and imprisoned multiple times for selling cocaine. Yes, he chose to break the law, but critics of our nation's imprisonment-centered justice methods contend that the millions of nonviolent offenders like Baker who have been sent to violent prisons are the real victims. Here's much of Tommy Baker's problem in one graph. In a nation where wealthy people like admitted one-time cocaine users Robin Williams, Lawrence Taylor, Stephen King, and presumed hard drug user George W. Bush would simply never have gotten prison, a kid from Claysburg would. By the 2000s, Tommy Baker was an ex-con, broke and ill. He died in 2010 and was buried in a pauper cemetery in Louisville. Jeffersonville High graduates formed a Facebook group to raise money to locate his unmarked grave and inscribe it with fitting markings noting their fondness for their schoolmate. One poster on an IU fan site, who was a Jeffersonville High student a few years after Tommy Baker, sadly announced Baker's death on the site in 2010, describing Tommy as well-liked, a very humble young man, a good kid, and a hard worker. Basketball will always be exciting to me. Indiana high school kids' way of playing the game, smart, graceful, and polished beyond their years, creates an aesthetic unattainable anywhere else. Hoosier fans packing gyms to boil over with their unique brand of hysteria can convince us that it really matters who wins the game. It shouldn't take tragic deaths to remind us of the siblings, spouses, parents, hobbies, neighborhoods, faiths, and fun that matter most in the lives of youth who wear their school uniforms only a few hours a week. In researching these stories of lives which ended too soon, I've realized that we had great folks in ball players like Jack, Tony, Tommy, Steve, Mike, Stacy, and Kevin. Moreover, I've learned the importance of appreciating talented, energetic, and devoted people while they're still with us.